my boss looked at me and he's like, well, what do you want? You're going to thrive in this role, but what do you want? And I was like, excuse me, nobody's asked me what I want. What are you talking about? He's like, think about it. Like, tell me what you really want. And it started this whole snowball between like, well, what are the questions I ask myself to figure out what I want? Half the time we don't actually know what we need, or we suffer silently.
We're put into these roles. We're put into situations where we kind of allow it. We don't know how. We've already said, as we said yes in our actions. We said yes by just doing. Hi, and welcome to another episode and another season of the Woman Witness podcast on the Woman Witness TV network. I'm your host, Leah Fortier. Here on this platform, we bring to you voices of dynamic women that are out there making a positive impact in their lives, in their family, in the community around them. Women of resilience, women of faith, women who have battled through something and they are bold enough, strong enough to turn around, grab the hand of another sister and be a witness. I have a special guest today, a woman who knows exactly what it means to go from overlooked to unstoppable. Jacqueline Hawk is an executive coach, a former corporate leader, and the founder of Soar Coaching and Consulting. Jacqueline helps women, especially mothers, confidently ask for what they want without guilt, fear, or apology. Her signature power of the ask framework has helped thousands of women, including leaders at Salesforce and Google Ventures, finally speak up, set boundaries, and step into roles that lighten up the room. Before she was in coaching C-suite clients, Jacqueline has been climbing the corporate ladder while quietly struggling with a sense of something was missing. What changed everything, one power, she decided to put together this framework to teach women and teach leaders how to set boundaries and ask for what they want. I am so excited to introduce to you my amazing, powerful, beautiful guest, Jacqueline Hawk. Hey, Jacqueline, welcome to the Well. How are you?
I am good. I am so excited to be here. This has been a long time coming for us and just so timely, especially you're saying wisdom and women and motherhood. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness. And I love how everything that you did, but more importantly, how you came up with this framework to set boundaries and to keep us from suffering in silence, being overlooked, and how to, step in and say, you know what? I need help. And without feeling less than, without feeling as if we're unhireable or unrelatable. So I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I want you to tell us a little bit about what you do. So Jacqueline, let me stop talking and you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who Jacqueline is and what it is that you do.
Well, you did a beautiful job with the introduction. So I'm like, where do I even start? But you nailed it. The punchline is I teach women how to ask for what they want, because even so many of us go on to teach help women where we are now based on where we used to be. So yeah, I grew up in a family that was like, do not speak until spoken to. Everything looked great. You put your head down, you did it. You're supposed to be an independent woman and thinker and speak up, but heaven forbid you actually did, right? It got shoved down. I saw a drawing about this the other day and I was like, oh my God, this was my life. Like, grow up, speak up, but don't be too loud. Don't be too pushy. Don't ask for too many things. And if you did, heaven forbid. Because especially for the generation of like my parents, everything was about them. Versus now as a parent, I think we're also a lot more in tune with what each of us need and our children need. So it just meant that I was always fitting in this little box of like small. And while it looked to the world like I was playing big, I mean, I was at Deloitte for 16 years and Disney. I lived in LA and London and San Francisco, and I'm now in Newport Beach. There was this part of me inside that was following everybody's rules, not going like so far that I just felt out of alignment with what I wanted, who I was, even like being in rooms of all men at all times, finding the right relationship where I was like, can I actually share what I need without them leaving me? Which is a story in itself I can even get to, of like a pivotal moment with relationships. And there was a pivotal moment when I was in London, going to change jobs. within Deloitte. And this is a key thing that I think a lot of us women do. If it doesn't work, we eject to find the next thing, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
a job or a
Absolutely.
relationship,
Yeah.
rather than speaking up about what we need. Half the time we don't actually know we need, what
Mhm.
we really need, or we suffer silently. And my boss looked at me and he's like, well, what do you want? You're going to thrive in this role, but what do you want? And I was like,
Mm.
excuse me?
What?
Nobody's asked me what I want.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? He's like,
Yeah.
think about it. Like, tell me what you really want. And it started this whole snowball between like, well, what are the questions I ask myself to figure out what I want besides this job, to be in a relationship, to be a mom, like those really like superficial, but they're the high level things, not the like.
Right.
And then it came to, well, how do I actually organize all these thoughts in my head to be
Mm.
clear, concise, convincing? And then, oh my God, what are the stories I'm telling myself about why I can't speak up about this? Even when I was like leading teams, or guiding my husband, like
Yeah.
what's holding me back from really being able to say what I want to say that helps us? And I ended up building this whole framework that made it turn my whole life on its head. It went from, all probably the first 35 years to well, I'm 40, almost 44 now.
Yeah.
But second years in corporate, I literally designed my roles. I took vacation. I worked myself out of a job because I trained people so well. I met my husband because I was able to say, here's what I need. How do we do this as a team? Motherhood isn't easy, but I do look around and I'm like, okay, I'm actually getting the support that I need. Like when I
Yeah.
talk to kids, how I ask them to do things is much more clear. And it makes life feel better. And even
Yeah.
if I don't get what I want, I feel empowered. So it's super fun to go into like everything I try and do, I'm like, how do I instill joy? Like going into the corporations, many of which you name, and doing workshops from anywhere from 20 to multiple hundreds of women to say, how do you ask for what you want, be it boundaries or schedules or pushing back when it's not actually your job, to being able to lead teams better and step into what you want while also doing what's really there for the company, what you're there for. Even I see a lot of women, the overwork and the stress they're in is because of the environment. So how do they actually create what they want to make it work so they don't have to leave the workforce or find another job? Like that was one of the things for me and a lot of my clients. They're like, well, should I stay or why don't I go find something else? And it's like, well, let's figure out what you want. Let's
Right.
ask for it, whether it's where you are now or something else. And then same thing with motherhood. It's just this framework helps women that are in business, but it helps us more as mothers because there's so much unseen labor. There's so much silent suffering. There's so much, well, I can do it better, faster. So and so is busy. But how do we actually reclaim a lot of our power and not take it all on ourselves? So
Yeah.
it's just something I'm passionate about, which maybe I'm impacting one woman at a time or hundreds, but I think can really transform society when we could reclaim a lot of our voice about
Yeah.
what we deserve.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, you said so much right there, Jacqueline. I can literally, I feel like I could see myself in every aspect of what you were explaining, from the corporate world to even a relationship, a partnership, and of course, motherhood. Okay, we don't even have time to go there right now, but we will. I want to ask you, I kind of feel sometimes we're put into these roles, right? We're put into situations where we kind of allow it. We allow it. We don't know how. We've already said yes. We said yes in our actions. We said yes by just doing. But Jacqueline, help us come to that conversation or get to that point where we can go back and say, you know what, I may have said yes, but I'm starting to change my mind. Maybe I wasn't clear about what you were asking of me, or maybe I wasn't clear about what I was willing to do. But how do we approach those situations?
I love that. You've hit the nail on the head of something that happens a lot is we may say something or put ourselves in a situation, but then go, "Ooh, doesn't feel right, not
Yeah.
gonna work," or whatever it actually is. And instead of just dealing with it, how do we turn around and actually speak up for ourselves? And it's the there's a couple things. And I'll even kind of start using pieces of the framework. So the power of the ask is a four-step framework where step one is how do you clarify what you want? And each of the four steps has questions that I ask myself to answer it. So it's also like a coming home to each of us of what do we need
Yeah.
to ask ourselves to then go talk to the world.
Yeah.
And the first piece is like, well, what do I really want? If I'm realizing that's not going to work or what do I want, a lot of times we can just be like, no, I'm not going to do it. Well, where does that get us? It's not always helpful.
Right.
So being able to figure out, well, what do we want instead? And we can dive more into it. But a lot of times we know what we don't want, but what do we want? And how do we actually get specific enough that it's something that we can articulate to somebody else of, instead of doing this, I want to do this. It could be
Mhm.
even, actually, a mom I was at dinner with last night, she's got two daughters. She was going to be picking up one of them at one point and then the other. She realized it was too much. And I was like, well, what would you like instead? And she's like, well, I can pick up one of mine, but I'd really like the other mom to go get the other daughter. Like, she can totally do it. I was like, great. That's what you can say instead of like, hey, I can't do this. Hey, I'm
Because
because, right? And
right.
maybe I'll get your daughter, another time. But being able to direct the path to where you actually want to go. Because if we can't clarify
Oh,
where we want to go with anything, we're stuck. And it's actually why a lot of fights happen too, because it's no, I don't want this or whatever, but where do you go? So that's the first piece of like, what do you actually want when you realize it's something different than the
that's
situation you got yourself in?
so good. Hold on, wait. I want to ask you something. So, okay, I love the example that you just gave. So would you lead with that? Would you say, "Hey, Jacqueline, I know that we discuss with me picking up both of the girls. Where do I go? Do I go and I don't want to do that because of, or do I just say, hey, why don't you just pick up one and then, maybe next time I'll pick up or the other? I don't know. Do you address it and give the because, right? Then doesn't that not all make it all about you? Like, I don't know. Talk to me about that. Sorry.
So I'm glowing with the excitement of your question, because this is why step 2 in my framework is the second step. How do
Yeah.
you actually get it? Even once we know what we want, we've got all these, like, some women have been like, it's all the data points. I was like, how
Yeah.
corporate? It's all the data points. It's the thoughts. It's the spinning. What order I put it in? What do I say?
Right.
How do I not be selfish? Step 2 of the power of the ask is actually taking some of my corporate trainings, some of my neurolinguistic programming, all of it. And I've
Mhm.
created some scripts that help us put all of those thoughts in our head into
Yeah.
sentences to be able to do what you're talking about. Like, give some context,
Right.
give the impact of it. So
Mhm.
somebody's like, oh, I get why you're asking for something different, and then
Right.
flip it head to why it actually helps. So it could sound something like, all right, context. Hi, I know I said I would pick up your daughter and I was super excited about it. But after I said yes, I realized I'm actually also supposed to be picking up my other daughter over here. Like, it's not possible. It's too much. I'd be too late. Like, whatever that impact
Yeah.
actually is, that also creates some understanding and compassion in the other person rather than like, well, she's a flake or she thinks she's too much.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because those are the
Yeah.
things that go through a lot of our head on the receiving end. And then
Mm-hmm.
to say like, "May I ask you to pick up my daughter this time?" Or, "Here's another solution." So you're actually planting seeds of why things have changed or what the situation is before you're inserting your ask, to create understanding, compassion. And sometimes somebody might not even agree with what you need, but they can understand and help through it. And
Right.
then the flip side is like, then you can think about why it matters to somebody else in this
Right.
situation or benefits them. It could be like, hey, I know, a couple weeks there's some moments where you can't pick them up. I'd be happy to do it. Or can I do this for you? Or like, hey, maybe I don't know how I can get you back. How can I? Like, never be afraid to ask a question of, where can I help you? Like, I don't know why or how this could be important to you too, but let's figure it out so it's a win-win.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
incredibly powerful. And it also just shows we care. Some people may say, don't worry about it. It's
Right.
ideal. But it removes that component of coming across or fearing being selfish.
Correct.
Um, and I love that, because that's that next step of the 4 steps are in a certain order, because I've road tested living daylights out of this with
Yeah.
everything we go through. But that would be a way to be able to start on that conversation.
I love it. Okay, let's go. I love this so much, so far. Let's go into that next step, Jacqueline.
So that next step, it's something we've already subtly talked about, but needs to
Mhm.
really be illuminated. What are the narratives in our head? I'll pick them out. You said it. I don't want to seem selfish. I don't
Yeah.
want to inconvenience the other mom.
Right.
Promise this. I don't want to be a flake. Like, there are all of these narratives and beliefs that come up. Now,
Yeah.
a lot of coaches and people, they work with the mindset piece first. Now, I
Mm.
think there's tremendous benefit to that. But what I've found when we're dealing with asking for help of others, even asking clarifying questions like mobilizing or motivating others, it's not always easy to say, well, what's going to stop me? Like, why am I afraid to do this? Until you get to this third step. You figured out what you wanted, You started to put it into words, and now you're even closer to the conversation. You can't ignore what is coming up in what we're telling ourselves or somebody else that might stop us from
Yeah.
actually following through, or even on the other hand, like become aggressive or pushy because our nervous system isn't calm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
That's good. Yep.
So we've got to be able to, and this is really why I bring in a lot of the neurolinguistic programming and the somatic. And it's funny, my friends laugh, like even my clients, I've got a lot of that corporate logic background, but a lot of also like the psychology and the woo woo and the energy to really marry it up. So you hit everything. But being able to say, like, oh, what am I believing about this situation that's either going to make me stop and hide from asking or fumble through it or be aggressive or anything other than just grounded and aligned? And when we
Yeah.
can be able to pick those out, typically we've already said them to ourselves, we can also look at them and be like, how much of this is true? Right? Is this
That's
just
good.
me? How's the other person going to react? How can I reframe this? Where does this come from? Half the time, it's not even our own voice. It's just something we took on.
Right. Right.
Um, and
Maybe
and
some
move
past trauma, some past rejection, things that we just probably hadn't dealt with that's still there. And it comes up in moments like this. Okay.
like the same mom last night. She was even saying, she's like, I always want to be direct, but I don't want to be more pushy. She's like,
Yeah.
What is that about? And I was like, well, it's funny. This is usually where either, but she's like, but I'm attracted to direct people. I was like, you probably envy that directness in others, but you feel being pushy. But if somebody's pushy,
Mm.
it's also going to trigger you, right? Like I was like, there's something in your past where you were told you were pushy or you observed how somebody was treated when they were more direct. I don't even
Yeah.
like saying the word pushy. They were just direct.
Right.
That
Right.
has you worried. So how can we see that in ourselves when we're in this process of what do we want? How do we organize the words and
Mhm.
thoughts? And
Mhm.
then be in more of a grounded, aligned, or you could say confident place to be able to have the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness, I love that so much. I want to just if you can, I want to talk about this process right here as far as like your beliefs, right? What we've been through, some of the different things that we tell ourselves. And we don't have a lot of time to sort through that stuff either, Jacqueline. And sometimes I feel like maybe it's just me, but sometimes maybe we over talk ourselves or out talk ourselves. Maybe we just, we're trying to find a good way of saying no, right? And some people don't have issues with setting boundaries. Some people be like, you know what, I said I'm good, I'm not, change my mind.
Yeah.
But for me, and maybe some other people who recovering people pleasers or whatever, maybe sometimes you want to say yes, you want to say yes, I can commit to this, or yes, I could do this, but here's what I need. I think so many times getting over some of those beliefs, if you will, like you said before, is hard. So how can we sit down and work on those privately, Jacqueline, to be able to fully accomplish step 3?
Yeah. There's a couple different ways. So let me see which is going to serve first. There's a really simple one. It's a little bit more heady, but I'm like, I will always meet people where they're at of the questions of like, what am I telling myself about the situation? And is this actually true? Right?
Yeah.
Like, am I going to be pushy? Are they going to hate me? Like, whatever it actually is. Are they going to stop liking me? Am I going to be seen as a flake?
Yeah.
Is this true?
Yeah.
If it's true, like, and I'm going to say it this way. So what if it's true? So what if somebody
That part.
doesn't like it? If
Yeah.
I can show up, there's a real piece to this. If I can show up and express what I need, and I am still confident and grounded and not, mean or nasty,
Yeah.
it's not always my responsibility how somebody else responds, and it may be theirs. That does not
Mhm.
relieve me of my responsibility to show up as best I can, but sometimes how the other person responds may not have nothing to do with me. So there's a piece
That's
of
good.
what am I telling myself? Is it true?
And how they're gonna feel in that and
Uh-huh. And then
okay.
we shut ourselves down. And that's where the problem is.
Oh my gosh, wait, Jacqueline, I love what you just said. That is so true. I don't want to interrupt you at all, but I just love what you said about it's not our responsibility to making sure how they feel, but it is our responsibility to step in and be concise with what we're portraying.